How are you? Welcome to Critical Moves of Telesur. What are we going to be talking about today? Well, let me tell you that it's the crisis of the refugee is now once again on the topic of the European Union after Turkey opened its doors for migration after the intensification of the war with Syria. However, in Guatemala, the story is the contrary. Guatemala has closed the door to the migrants from Honduras due to the risk of coronavirus. Who is responsible for these people? In whose hands is the responsibility of this migration? Let's begin. In Brussels and from Russia, the president of Turkey, Erdogan, was able to reopen the agreement of refugees that was acquired with the European Union in 2016. In this context, he called on Europe to involve itself more in this conflict between Ankara and Damascus. Migrants need support, Greece needs support, but also Turkey needs your support. And this means finding a way. We clearly have our disagreements, but being able to speak clearly about this. It was a good dialogue, and the discussion was centered in pinpointing the areas where we can work in the benefit of the European Union and Turkey. This goes way beyond this declaration of 2016 that is still vigilant. And we discussed on how to implement all of the regulations, analyze them, and find a common agreement on how to go forward. We decided to send Borrell and his counterpart in Turkey with a team that will work in the upcoming days in clarifying the agreement between Turkey and the European Union. So we can be sure to be on the same page. We have the same interpretation of what we do in Turkey as well as in the European Union. We will maintain the political discussion with Mr. Erdogan. The frontier of Syria and Turkey is also the NATO border. The crisis in Syria is a threat for everybody, and this goes in the borderline of humanitarian problems. No European We have always recognized, and we keep on recognizing, that Turkey has a basic role in the problem of migrants. However, this cannot happen under any blackmailing of using people for geopolitical interests. So what is the European Union and how did it begin? Let's analyze this. European Union, receptor of migrants. It's an international organization that tries to join all of the people in there. It's made up of 28 countries, but after the withdrawal of the United Kingdom, the number has gone down to 27. The bloc has a combined area of 4,233,255 square kilometers and a GDP of $22 million. The organization that will become the European Union was created after the World War II. Their first steps was to foster the economic union. However, this bloc has not been declared as a economic union, but then it was. The main objective is to promote peace, offer liberty, security, and justice, foster the sustainable development, promote scientific progress, to foster economic and social coercion, as well as have an economic and money union. The European Union has developed a law system that works through internal structure that has evolved throughout history until making a hybrid system that combines systems of multilateral systems. However, there is a strong institution. The bloc has an internal system that has let's say that the main problem is the Mediterranean Sea. Let's go there. Let's see this strategic area. Mediterranean Sea, this is the epicenter of the problem. The Mediterranean is an interior sea that connects through the Strait of Gibraltar with the big one. It's connected to the Atlantic Ocean, surrounded by the Mediterranean basin, and almost completely enclosed by land on the northern and the southern and Anatolia. Their waters, it has also part of the Black Sea, and with the Red Sea, the Mediterranean washes the coast of Germany, Italy, Romania, Greece, Turkey, Egypt, Algeria, Libya, Spain, and France. These countries are a very dangerous neighborhood. There are civil wars, insurrections, invasions, hunger, and genocide. This has made the area one of the most unstable. To this, there is an incursion from the north of Africa to Europe. There is also a great origin of resources there. Going over the press, let's see what ONU says. The death migrants
La desaparición de una embarcación que salió de la costa libia el 9 de febrero pasado con al menos 91 personas a bordo elevó la cantidad de migrantes muertos en el Mediterráneo a 20.014 en el periodo.
There are 20,000 people dead in the Mediterranean because they are trying to leave their homes in unsecure boats. This is the most recent of ghost boats that normally end up very unwell. Frank Laxo explains that 2/3 of the deceased are people who are lost in sea and have no evidence afterwards. So then they ask to have more rescue boats in the Mediterranean. These phantom boats are reported by NGOs that call organizations that are out at sea, and as well as relatives that are looking for their lost loved ones. Many times there are organizations that try to rescue these cars, and they just determine that those people were lost at sea. When the disappeared come from a rich country, the things are different. But if they're poor migrants, nothing really happens. Nobody looks for them. Although the dead people have diminished ever since 2016, where more than 5,000 people disappeared, the proportion of death versus the intent of crossing has increased in 2019. This means that the risks are higher and the people are willing to take it. Apparently there is no change in why the people would want to leave. And what is necessary is to improve their lives at home so people won't have to flee their countries. But not everything happens there. Let's see what Prensa Libre says from Guatemala. This is March 9. This is the government will expel the migrants of the new caravan with symptoms that have to do with the coronavirus. President Yamatei says that they will check all of the migrants that have tried to come in to Guatemala, and if somebody has a fever and there is a threat that this person might have a coronavirus, they will be immediately expelled. There is a new caravan that will meet in San Pedro Sula and then leave to the United States, passing through Guatemala. The health authorities have also given a press release saying that the control brigades will be controlling the borders and the airports. The CONRED recommends that people maintain themselves informed about the virus and follow the instructions, as well as having hygiene regulations that have been established by the minister. We can say that the migrants in South America are also being stigmatized by the coronavirus. I would like to suggest you read an article called Migration, a Crisis of Humanity. This is from the University of Bernardo Higgins. Nowadays, migration is a phenomenon that puts to test the most advanced democracies, both in Europe as well as the United States and also in Chile. Migration has been transformed into a topic that generates great impact in the public opinion, and due to its extension, it's also been politicized and made an electoral topic. The people that go from South America to the United States is nothing new, but the new phenomenon is that this is a exodus that is an exodus that is a massive wave of people where all type of people are leaving, and this unleashes a true humanitarian crisis. Nowadays, this caravan has taken a posture. They will use this. Will the United States use the international standards of human rights, or will they apply hard hands in the name of the interests of their country? What does this harsh hand mean when it has to do with people that are hungry, weak? In Chile, the topic of migration has now become a topic of public interest. Strategies that have been displayed through the public media, such as the massive deportation, are criticized by civil society and the scholars. The process of regularization has been slower than thought of, and the level of irregularity have not changed. The laws are still being discussed in Congress. All of this when we need public policies that is urgent, as well as we have to eradicate racism. Why is it still there are some nationalities and some languages are still being stigmatized and people are being discriminated against? Is it that we discriminate because when people that with money come to our countries and we call them friends, but when they're poor, people that are refugees, a caravan of refugees or a Haitian community, we reject them, we criminalize them, and we exclude them. Is it that we reject the migrants because they're poor, not because they're foreign? Everything points that that's the case. So, more than a humanitarian crisis, we have a humanitarian crisis. A colleague of ours that is following this topic, especially is Sergio Rodrigo. He sent us this report. Hello to everybody from Telesur. In fact, the European Union are trying to find an agreement to confront the situation of the refugees in the border between Turkey and Greece. This last Monday, there was a high-level meeting while the authorities of the European Union and Turkey, the President Erdogan himself has visited the headquarters of the European Union in Brussels. So far, there is a table of discussion Turkey, on its hand, it says that the agreement has not been fulfilled in several points. The first is that most of the money that was offered by the European Union has not arrived, and that the agreement by which that the free circulation of the Turkish people has not gone through, and they have not gone through in the fact that there was a limit number of people that Turkey was going to be able to receive. And while the European Union insists that Turkey is using the refugees as a geopolitical tool so they can have a better benefit in these agreements, well, this situation, there is not a big agreement. But so far, the parts are meeting, and the refugees are still trying to pass the borders of Turkey and Greece. And now what they're doing is the 1954 Geneva Agreement has been broken, where the refugees have received protection. Let's go to our first pause in our critical move. But don't forget that we have the question of the day, and we would like to hear from you. Today, it's according to United Nations, more than 20,000 people have died crossing the Mediterranean ever since 2014. In Central America, those who begin their passage to the United States are stopped, and they're left in no one's land. Who's in charge? Give us your opinion. We'll be right back. In the last decade, the migration has changed in many places in Africa and the Middle East. Due to that part of the world has been affected by several armed conflicts. 2018 has registered the record number of migrants that have been displaced, of which 26 million has been a consequence of wars in their places. 41 million are displaced internally, according to United Nations. And the new displacement is 37,000 people a day. In the global population, by the end of 2018, the number has gone up to 25. And 2/3 come from 5 countries: Syria, Afghanistan, Sudan, Myanmar, and Somalia. After 9 years of war in Syria, those who were born there are still the major displaced, with 13 million people, including, well, this is of 6 million migrants to other countries, 6 million displaced within their territory, and 1 million that are seeking refugees in other countries. These are vulnerable population because they have no money, no arms, and some go to through the Mediterranean. This sea is called the cemetery of migrants, and these are causes of two phenomenons that are based on racism. The measures designed by the European countries have been discriminatory when they try to there is a fight against the organizations that are trafficking people. Let's begin the first part of the analysis in our critical move. From Argentina, we have Jorge Luis Ubertal and Orlando Romero from Argentina. He's an expert in all types of wars.
Entre otros aspectos, porque también desde los medios vamos a analizar este tema de los migrantes y refugiados. A ambos les doy.
Thank you very much to both my guests. Let's begin with, let's start with the news part of the topic. First, once again, Turkey. The European Union sit down to a table to try to recover an agreement, a 2016 agreement, and up until now, nothing had been solved. And on the contrary, everything was worse. And now Turkey is trying to open its border with Turkey and thus press the European countries so they can present a good proposition for the capital city. Was it necessary to reach this point? Well, thank you very much. Greetings to everybody in Telesur and everybody who's watching. And the topic of Turkey is that through the European Union was going to pay more than $3 million have already been passed. However, Turkey, they want to get rid of the migrants that come from Afghanistan and Pakistan because they have this conflict in Syria. This is the IBIS conflict in which Turkey has been involved. Many migrants of Idlib are going to Turkey, so they can't receive migrants from one place and the other. So now they need help they want help to manage all of these migrants. So of course this problem could have been solved. But the migratory topic between Turkey and Syria, now Turkey is violating the agreements of the United Nations. And this doesn't happen just here, but it also happens in Romania. And they don't know what to do with them because they're Muslim people, and since Romania is a Buddhist country, they're attacking all these people. And seeing from the geopolitical point of view, this is what happens when Israel was attacking the Gaza. And why do they want to go to Egypt? It's because they had ousted all of the people that were involved in this in choosing the president. So what they're trying to do is to recall this and do the same. We have a case here in Argentina. There is a virus of coli, and there was and we gave them a different pill that is not for what is needed, and in policy it might be the same. In Latin America, of course, it's not only in North America, but also in Salvador, where people just want the head of Damocles. And then the country could be able to maintain themselves. But the United States always has the best card. So now there's a problem in all of the countries of Central America. Apart from the Maras Salvatruchas that the Americans began in Los Angeles and then they sent back to El Salvador so they can create conflicts in that country as well as in others, the North Americans that are practically the inspiration of all this, and they obligate people to migrate to Europe. So, Jorge Luis, what are the causes of this forced disappearance? And we would like to integrate Orlando Romero
sobre los fenómenos migratorios, sobre todo las migraciones forzadas que se dan no solo en Europa, como bien plantea él, en Oriente Medio y también por acá por tierras de América.
These conflicts that also happen in many parts of the world. And the conclusion might be simple, and it is that the forced migrant, nobody wants them. Why? Well, greetings for you, Ray, and for all of your audience. Well, migrants have always been uncomfortable for all of the governments. They're not part of the structures of the country. They're a heavy load because they don't pay any type of income tax. And if we pay attention to the quality of the services, so, and for all of this, the prices are lower than the rest of the world. I think that the situation in Syria and in Turkey is a bit more complex. Because if it,
a partir de lo que me cuentas, Orlando, también fue provocado por el Pentágono. Vamos a indagar un poco más cuando hablamos del Pentágono de Estados Unidos. ¿Por qué es Estados Unidos?
Why is it the United States is the big responsible for the migration, not only in America? Well, back to Turkey. The phenomenon in Turkey and Turkey's war against Syria, it's just that they cannot allow the Kurdish to take over and become a government. And we can say that there is no problem. There's no difference between the Kurdish militia and the Turkish. So it's understandable that the Turkish people will try to stop the expansion of this expansion. And let's not forget that the Turkish government signed an agreement with Angela Merkel, the Prime Minister of Germany, about trying to be a door, a stop in the migration to Europe. However, this situation now is being affected by the military. Right now, there's a series of and there's the consequences of all of the wars. And now Erdogan is asking him to go through with the debts with the European Union. And all of the reports in Libya, all of this, along with many tribes that dominate Libya. The European Union itself has said that Libya is dangerous, and the systematic violence against the migrants and refugees have been widespread. The cases as violation and tortures that have been registered by several NGOs that fight for independence has created we're speaking of Libya, Afghanistan, and other countries that have always suffered a genocide. And now they're just a fabric of migrants. And apparently now they're going to open the doors to the European Union and relaxing all of the controls for the migrants. And what this means is that they're showing their real face, which is the worst one. And they are now provoking what they themselves have started. Jorge Luis, we see that the United States is a key influence. However, can we say that it's the European Union who would have to start reading? And in any case, and the main culprits of this is United States and Europe. Europe has said several times this is a colony of the United States. Once the Golden Tire has been able to finance the banks that were in danger. And let's say that Erdogan is pressuring Europe to eat. And well, the United States pressures everybody because in this migrant situation, and although they are playing around with Idlib, on the other hand, you see that Russia does have problems with the people of the Saudis because of the loss of the price of Saudi Arabia. A part of this, there were sanctions. All of this provokes that even if you add to this the coronavirus, and when we're talking about this coronavirus, there is a crisis that goes on. The only way out would be the land that touches everybody. I think that this of the migration and everything should be published, and this should go beyond the provocation of many groups. So, Orlando, bearing in mind what Jorge Luis said, so there was the stop of this irregular migration. So there would be a solution of the irregular migration in the world. There should be an elimination of the military complex. So what do you think? In this moment, Donald Trump has said that there's going to withdraw its forces from Syria. And we all know that the Turkish militia is very well equipped. Donald Trump has decided to reach back. And this geopolitical address, on one hand, because we all know that the Turkish problems is just a crisis. It's not just a crisis. What they're trying to do is take over the petroleum. And of course, they have the support of the United States.
y sin la extracción de recursos naturales que están ejecutando en el Medio Oriente, estamos en presencia de la destrucción de la Unión Europea, de la destrucción de la Unión Europea. Por otro lado,
of destruction of the United Nations. On the other hand, we have a United Nations that is threatened by all of the influx of United Nations. This
entre la posible alianza que en este momento se está ejecutando entre Turquía, Siria y Rusia, además de Irán. Entonces estamos en las puertas de ese conflicto.
So we are at the place of this conflict.
Probablemente la Tercera Guerra Mundial.
We're in the bridge of a third world war. Here we begin with a guest. Thank you very much for your time. Let me recall that we have a strategical question. According to the United Nations, more than 20,000 have crossed the sea and they've died. In South America, whoever has a apartheid CQ, you're back. After we finish this pause, millions of people have been forced to be displaced due to wars in their countries. While in Central America, millions are fleeing from hunger and violence that's been provoked by the neoliberal system of government. According to the Organization of Migration, almost 90,000 people have crossed the Mediterranean Sea in 2019 in this region. The focus of tension has been based in Turkey and Greece when last February, and with the great escalation of violence in Idlib, the government of Erdogan opened its borders with the European Union, saying that he could not contain the migration influx. European Union said that this was a political move, and they called on the authorities of Ankara to go through with the agreement of 2016. On the other hand, 2017, the violence against Myanmar had increased, and this displaced almost 300,000 people to Bangladesh. The United Nations has estimated that 42,000 people have gone through the Bengal Bay and trying to improve their conditions of life. According to the Organization of Migrations, between 2016 and 2017, 85,000 people, Rohingyas, went to Bangladesh. On the other hand of the world, more than 6 migrant caravans have tried to reach the United States from Central America. Ever since 2018, hundreds of children, women, and men are fleeing from the hunger and violence after 2018, when hundreds of Central Americans reached the border of the United States, and Trump threatened, saying that he would cut any type of economical help if they don't stop the migratory influx. Plus, he doubled up on the border frontier with Mexico. According to NGOs, the main part of migration is in the United States, from which 50,000 people are expecting their requests are being solved through the migration courts. Let's speak with Francisco González. He's an international lawyer. Hello, Francisco. Today the topic is forced migration. This is not the migration that we think is a normal phenomenon and through the normal ways, but these are the ones that have been forced, like from hunger, wars, and as we saw, they are not welcomed in almost no country. We were talking about the situation in Turkey. Erdogan is at the center of the problem because Turkey knows that they have a very strategic place
Cuando dice que le saca el filo, entonces se pone de parte de la Unión Europea que dice que Erdogan prácticamente los está chantajeando.
Well, it's the circumstances of today. They're trying to also have political benefit. Erdogan some years ago was supported by the European Union. But then they had an alliance with Russia and China and even Latin America. This was a coup. Well, 2016 was the same year there was this migration agreement, and now what Erdogan is doing is trying to push.
¿Cuál era la lógica anterior?
La lógica anterior era unas relaciones mucho más profundas con la Unión Europea, con la OTAN y con Estados Unidos. Entonces ahora es una ambivalencia. Ahora está más con Rusia, está más.
And now Turkey is more with Russia and China.
En ese ámbito creo que hay ambivalencias, pues es como.
But of course there are differences there. These.
Por un lado a ver si vuelve a la lógica anterior, pero también al mismo tiempo juega con esa lógica del lado de Rusia, por ejemplo. Él sabe que hay una disputa.
Now Erdogan is taking advantage of the dispute between Russia and the United States, and what he's doing is he's taking advantage of it, to take advantage of the situation, to see how he can play around it. And in this sense, there is a situation that everybody criticizes the Kurds, which are the relationship with the United States. But for inside of Turkey, and this of the Kurdistan, in this logic with Turkey, is a justification for his country, and it's the fact that they say that all of the others are terrorists.
Es precisamente mantener la estabilidad a partir de sacar al PKK y a los kurdos de la lógica gubernamental.
Bueno, pero eso es prácticamente la génesis del conflicto que tradicionalmente ha sostenido el gobierno turco con
this strategy is normal. I mean, they're using it forever.
Norte que comparte el norte de Siria con el sur.
And the strategy of north with the border with Syria is this. It is foreseen that what the Turkey is expecting is the non-expansion or the non-creation of the Kurdistan government in that zone. But these same analysts criticize the fact that a faction of the Kurdish group have become allies of the United States when the United States made promises they never kept. Maybe if you see more specifically in the northern part, we see this experience before, and there's a popular government. Since the government of Syria has not been able to maintain security,
pero el gobierno de Bashar al-Assad se mantiene firme diciendo que los kurdos sirios son considerados sirios.
In the case of Syria, they're part of the population. In the case of Turkey, they're seen as terrorists. There's this duality, and in this zone, you know, this is the justification of Erdogan to pass the line and attack. And they say that Syria is helping the terrorists and the Kurds. Well, the fact that they crossed the border, this is an extraterritorial act, and they're disrespecting the sovereignty of Syria. Of course, because when they do that, it's a type of invasion. So Syria has the right to expel them as fast as possible, and that's what they do. From foreign policy, this generates migration, people who have to flee from the war. So where are they going? And Turkey, they will be also rejected because the person who is going to be used as the anti-war migration
Ursula von der Leyen. Es primera vez y ahí vemos que hay una radicalización de la política
there
de
is
la
a
Unión Europea
radicalization
de la
of
parte
the European
anterior,
Union
sí, de la representación anterior
work
a esta que hay ahora. Entonces,
from
en
the
ese
one
sentido,
now.
nos
So
parece
in
que
this
hay
sense, we
una cuestión
believe
que genera muchos problemas, no solamente por el
there
hecho
is
de
a part
mantener
who
los turcos,
generates
pero
a
los
lot
que vienen en
of
camino.
pressure, not
El
only
problema también es
to
para los que ya están.
hold it as a shield against the new ones.
A ver, en países como Suecia,
In
como
countries
Alemania,
such as
uno
Switzerland
ya
and
ve
Germany,
en ciudades allí, pues la cantidad de migrantes que están llegando de esos países. Y hay una política
and there's a
excluyente para
excluding
integrarlos
policy to
a la
include
sociedad.
them,
Entonces,
to
¿qué pasa?
include these
Eso genera al
migrants
mismo
into their
tiempo que la
society.
excusa
This
para mucha
shows
gente de
that
la
for
derecha,
many,
de
the
ultraderecha, contra el
excuse
gobierno de Angela Merkel, contra estos gobiernos de
of
centro,
these
por ejemplo,
people
socialdemócratas, el hecho de decir que están
is the
abriendo las
fact
puertas
that
para
they're
la
just
migración.
opening
Incluso esa ha
the
sido
doors for
carta
migration.
de aval que ha tenido la ultraderecha en los últimos tiempos para posicionarse y escalar en materia gubernamental, no solo en estos países, también
And
vemos,
it's
por
not
ejemplo,
only
lo
in
que
this
está pasando en
country, it's
Estados
also in
Sí, claro,
United
yo creo que
States.
incluso si vemos en términos de análisis político y marketing político es usado, y ahí vemos como Stephen Bannon también, asesor de Trump, se ha aprovechado
And
de
we'll
esa
see
dinámica y ha
how
financiado mucho de estos
these,
partidos para levantar las ultraderechas
the
ultranacionalistas en Europa. Estamos viendo esos partidos que
the
han
right
levantado
wing is also responsible for all of this world phenomenon. We have that in Spain with Vox. We have them in Italy. We have them in Germany. So it's complicated because this makes that this heightening of the migration. This will just be to use to make policies. And none of these policies favor migrants. No, they're still expelled and that's it.
Centroamérica, que vemos ahora las noticias que están circulando de que Guatemala le cierra las puertas a los migrantes hondureños, quiero decir, a esta nueva caravana de migrantes hondureños.
I'm speaking of this new caravan of the Honduras people that are going to the United States as the irregular paths. What do you think will happen with them? Well, in this sense, let's see how much money Trump is going to ask Congress to do front with this, because with this humanitarian help, it's not only the states but also the NGOs. They're using this to generate money. So, well, it's an excuse to help migrants, but in reality, it's to hold NGOs. But the truth is, they don't help the migrants. This money goes to other countries. And this is clear because if it was a policy of migration to help migration, things would have changed. Something would have improved. But tell us, why is the problem still increasing? But now there is nothing is happening. So we can say that this money is not well invested. And maybe this is why the European Union has already put money into this and it hasn't worked. So now they're fearful of putting more money. So where is the solution? Tell us. Because we saw that in the previous block, we agreed that while there is the military complex, there will be migration. And when this happens, we have to mention United States. Apparently, it seems that the government of Donald Trump wants to make a different policy in those territories. Because there's an internal fight in the United States that has to do with the internal disputes of the current president and the one that will come. And in this sense, we are under the situation that Donald Trump wants to change some situations.
creo que en un primer momento se dice que es para mejorarlas. Por ejemplo, Afganistán, tomemos el ejemplo de Afganistán. Van a retirar
So, what they're, for example, Afghanistan, they're going to withdraw troops and they don't want to invest more money. So, what these countries are doing, they're resisting. And now the United States, what they do is they send Mike Pompeo, and he says that everything is perfect. So tell us, this policy of Donald Trump, who does it benefit? Well, we as defenders of human rights, we should push forward so they will stop doing it. So I think this goes to the point of calling these countries to stop. And, for example, leave Libya. In 2019, lawyers of the International Humanitarian Commission are asking investigations on these deaths at high sea. These are French lawyers and Italian, a group, where they ask the International Criminal Code they want to accuse the European Union for the deaths of all of these migrants. And they assure that there are evidence that people from the European Union, according to these people. So so this is, we should pressure more the powerful countries of the European Union, like Germany and France, to stop having this policy that they know how these mafias are taking advantage of this.
Conflictos que generaron en esto, en crisis humanitarias y en crisis migratorias. Entonces, ¿dónde está la solución?
So where is the solution? I would like to ask again. We have to press the international community. Right now, we have seen the decisions of United Nations. For example, in 2019, what they were going to do with Venezuela, and if we compare that with what happens in Libya, we have to see that their policies depend on the control that the United States has in this organism. So right now, Russia and China are not going to let the United States do whatever they want globally. And that's what we see in this crisis that Donald Trump is creating. So what we can say is that the United Nations will work according to the balance of forces they have. And this geopolitics of the United Nations determines where the world will see more actions or none at all.
Está Cuba, está América Latina, los países de integración continental, como Venezuela, Argentina está en este momento, está Alberto Fernández tomando la agenda de integración continental. Entonces estamos viendo. So we see that regardless of the chaos and of the invasions and crisis, it is possible to have some force in the United Nations with counter forces. Thank you very much, Francisco, for your time. Let's go to our conclusions.
The question is still there. How many more migrants will have to suffer and in worst cases lose their lives trying to find stability, while the community of nations finds more effective systems to analyze the causes like poverty, insecurity, armed conflicts will help. But it's important not to only stay in the analysis. We need more action. We need to see that the money goes somewhere effective. And we know who the responsible are. Thank you very much.